This whole thing was very bizarre. Welcome back to Cryptid Mysterious. Have you ever thought or considered seeing a couple of Sasquatch creatures eating a whale? Like, yes, an actual whale from the ocean. If you haven't hit that subscribe button already, I'd greatly appreciate you smashing that for me. Let's get into today's episode. This one comes to us from Henry and Lyle, residents of Washington State. It was June of 2011 that Lyle and I were stretching our legs on the shoreline, about 20 miles south of Cape Flattery, and maybe 10 miles due east of the Olympic National Park. You can get very close to the shore here via the highway, and we were now hiking below a short bluff, which is inclusive of a protected narrow band of wildlife management zone. The time of day was about 7:30 a.m. when we began our hike. This is a large stretch of shoreline consisting of many miles, which Lyle and I regularly hike at different points and times of the year. Lyle is an artist and comes up here to collect driftwood to use in sculptures. We were hugging the bluff, scavenging through the debris from the high tide, looking for some good finds, when we were just approaching a bend in the bluff to our left. Once around this bend, a long stretch of beach comes into view, which extends for many miles to the south. As soon as our eyes were clear of the bluff, we could see two large, darkly colored figures moving around a large mass lying on the shore. One of the figures was standing, and the other appeared to be bowed down on the ground, moving around. From the distance, it looked like it may have been two men wearing coveralls or foul weather gear. So we continued heading in their direction. I don't think we walked another 100 feet when the guy on the ground stood up and the man who was standing turned around quickly and looked in our direction. No sooner had this happened than the two of them took off, scurrying up the side of the bluff and out of sight. This whole thing was very bizarre as it was unfolding. As weird as this all may sound to you, picture us walking down the lonely stretch of shore and having this occur before your own eyes. We continued to walk down to where they had been, and as we got closer, we could now see the mass on the beach was, in fact, a dead juvenile gray whale. The whale was obviously dead and had an enormous wound in its side. To us, it appeared it may have been the result of a great white attack, or maybe a killer whale. It appeared to have died and washed up on the beach before being eaten. I now realized, standing over the whale, that what I was seeing from the distance was one guy holding up the upper jaw of the whale, and the other guy was on the ground doing something within the mouth area of the whale. There was a lot of meat, for lack of a better word, and debris laying around the mouth of this whale on the beach. It seemed as though they had been going through the mouth to harvest the interior of the whale. As we stood there, taking this all in and trying to make sense of it, our eyes now turned to the bluff where the figures had exited. It was fairly tall and steep. We could see where they had climbed. We looked over there and determined that neither one of us could scale it at all, let alone at a fast pace. These two guys had made it up in seconds. Moving closer to the bluff's base, our eyes were opened to what we had been seeing. There were several very large and well-made bare footprints at the base of the bluff. They were similar to a human's but extremely large and broad in nature. The two of us not being ignorant, now realized we had just seen two Bigfoot scavenging a whale and making a hasty exit up the bluff. With the Olympic National Park and Forest being in reasonably close proximity to our location, and the fact of the matter being that there's nothing around here to speak of to begin with, we now knew that they were in the area. The picture had now become clear as to what we were seeing. I know, speaking for myself, that I was thinking, what the heck are two guys doing out here in black fisherman's rain gear? And even if they were coveralls, it would have been inappropriate for the day's weather, which was very mild. I did notice that as they started to run, their movements looked very strange. Their steps and arm swings looked disproportionate in comparison to what we're used to seeing from a human perspective. And now we knew the reason why. We had just seen two Bigfoot on the shore. Well, guys, that was an interesting one. A couple of Bigfoot in Washington on the beach, taking advantage of a little dinner having washed up on shore. By little, obviously quite large, but thanks to these guys, dinner was interrupted. What do you think? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and as always, if you've had an encounter with a Bigfoot, you know what to do. Throw me an email at cryptidmysterious@gmail.com. Thanks for hanging out.